My name is Sam, and welcome to our fourth session of Same Again, our series in which we've been looking at life after lockdown and looking to the Bible to help us answer some of our questions. In the previous video, we've seen that we, as sinful humans, have turned away from God and want to rule our own lives. Therefore, we deserve God's punishment of judgment and death. This evening's video is all about who Jesus is. You might have no idea at all who he is. You might have some idea. You might even have a fake news idea of who Jesus is. Well, I want to show you who he really is. I love a good self-sacrifice scene in a movie. It's guaranteed to get the emotions going. In the film Day After Tomorrow, there's a group of survivors who are roped together, trekking across the apocalyptic level of snow, when the man at the end falls through the top of a glass building. When he realizes that he can't be rescued without the others in the group also falling to their death, he cuts the rope, attaching himself to the group, and falls and dies. That man gave his life to save the rest of the group from also falling to their death. Well, Jesus is the man who shows us the greatest self-sacrifice ever. He gives his life to save us from God's punishment of judgment and death. This verse from the Bible summarizes the work of Jesus. It says Christ, that's another way of referring to Jesus, Christ died for sins once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to God. God sent his son, Jesus, into the world. God sent his son, Jesus, into the world. And let's look at two incredible things that Jesus did. Firstly, he lived perfectly under God's rule. Jesus was not like us in that, as a man, he lived a perfect life without sin under the rule of God. He didn't try to turn away and rule his life like we do. That's why it says in our verse that Jesus is righteous. He lived a servant-hearted life under his Father. He healed the sick. He reached out to the marginalized and broken people he came across. He taught people the right way to live. He even, without doing wrong, opposed those who were living against God, hung out with guys who were considered to be bad and unclean, and was tempted in the same way that we are. But unlike us, he did not give in to that temptation. Whereas we will lie to wriggle out of difficult situations, Jesus did not lie when asked difficult questions. Whereas we will react to others in anger and violence, Jesus did not retaliate when insulted and shunned. Whereas we are completely bad and full of sin, Jesus was completely good and without sin. Therefore, he did not deserve to die. He did not deserve God's punishment, which is what makes the second thing he did even more amazing. So secondly, Jesus died so that we can be forgiven. Rather than us having to bear the punishment for sin, God made an infinitely better way. God made a way for us to be forgiven by punishing his son, Jesus. Jesus died a cruel and painful death on the cross. He was betrayed by one of his closest friends, mocked and beaten, spat upon. He had a crown of horrible thorns thrust into his head. He was paraded through the streets of Jerusalem to a hill outside the city and nailed to a wooden cross. And as he died one of the worst deaths that a human being could suffer in those days, he became unrighteous and had his own Father, God, turn his face away from him as the depths of our sin were placed upon his shoulders. He took the full force of God's justice so that we can be forgiven. Our verse puts it as the righteous for the unrighteous. What's even more special about Jesus' death is that it's a once for all sacrifice. In the first part of the Bible, the Old Testament, God's people had to sacrifice animals regularly to deal with their sin. With Jesus, his death means that all our sin, all my sin, all your sin, can be dealt with forever. I find that incredible. At this point, I think there's a temptation to feel guilty. Why did an innocent man die so that I can be forgiven? Well, God didn't have to do this. He did it out of love. You might have heard the well-known verse from the Bible, John 3:16, that starts, For God so loved the world, that he gave his only son, his one and only son. God chose in his love to sacrifice Jesus so that instead of no one being righteous, we can be made righteous. So what does that mean for you? Well, it means that your sin can be taken away. It means that you can be set free from the bad things that you have done and continue to do. It means you can be made righteous because Jesus died to bring us to God, rather than us being turned away in judgment as his enemies. We would love to know what you think about this and to discuss with you what Jesus has done for us and what you think of Jesus. So please join us in the chat after this video broadcast. The link will be on the website and we would love to talk to you. Also, you might be thinking, what's next? Jesus is dead, so why believe in a dead man? Well, Jesus dying is not the end. There's a second part to the life of Jesus. So please join us in our next session as we look at this Sunday at 8 p.m, when we will look at what is to come. Thank you.